Before we dive into today's episode, I have something truly special to share. Next September, I'll be leading an intimate women's retreat through the south of France and northern Italy, and you're invited. Picture this: mornings exploring the colorful markets of the French Riviera, afternoons sipping wine, and a hotel view with golden Mediterranean sunsets. Whether you love photography, food, or just want to reconnect with your playful creative self, this trip is designed for you. Spots are limited, so if all this sounds like your kind of adventure, please visit tourwithabsolutely.com and look for the tour France and Italy with Crystal. You can also send me a message or check out the show notes. Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. So welcome to the show, Tammy.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me, Crystal. I'm excited to be here.
I met you several years ago now, and it's such a wonderful time to get back together and talk about creativity, being an entrepreneur, leading. But I always like to start from the beginning, talk a little bit about your journey from being an entrepreneur to leading in the nonprofit sector.
Yeah, I'm happy to. You're right. It's been I can't believe 5 years ago we met when I was there in Paris. And I just love that we've stayed in touch. So it is wonderful to keep seeing you grow and be a part of this. So thank you for that. It's like anything, it's never a straight line. It's a circuitous route. And the same is true for me in that I was doing a lot around education and particularly access. So I was really thinking about, what does it mean to be a student or a family that doesn't have a lot of resources? And this was regardless of where you lived in the country, your background, whether it was urban or suburban or rural, whether different ethnicity, gender, religion, none of that mattered. It was just about access to education. And literally what that turned out to be is whether you had exposure to opportunities and whether your family had resources. And so we were trying to think about how to make this so that it wasn't about a resource issue. And so it really was my own background in that I came from a really, really poor background and didn't have a lot beyond my local public school, which they did a great job with limited resources. And I'm still so thankful and keep in touch with many of some of my teachers and my guidance counselor from my public school days in New Jersey. But that's when I first started thinking about access. And then I was doing work specifically with K-12 schools, which I loved. I was not a teacher. I don't know that would have been my calling as it is for some others who are just so incredible at it. But I did learn to teach older kids and college students and love that. So the reality was I realized that I wouldn't be as good with little kids and middle schoolers. But I did love teaching older kids and adults. But it was in that work and education. And specifically, I was working in admissions and financial aid with schools that had tuition and trying to ensure there was access for lots of different kids to be able to attend. And then we started doing work around teachers and trying to create access to build the pipeline for teachers. And I was executive director of a program that did that work on both sides, that was helping kids to be better prepared to head to high school, or regardless of what kind of high school they attended, public, private, or some blend, and then also helping to build a pipeline for teachers. But that all happened because of a really conscious decision much younger, when I was about 14, and I was just beginning to understand how I had been given an opportunity to have access to greater educational experiences. And really, without understanding the decision I was making, I decided, this is what I'm going to do. I don't have all the words for it, but this is the kind of work I'm going to do. And so that led to work that allowed me to be able to see education K through 12, later on working in collegiate institutions. But it really was my own experience and realizing that I had been given opportunities, and now I wanted to see how do you create it for others. And so ended up in K-12 schools, then made a conscientious decision to head to graduate school around ed policy, then went on to lead nonprofits, and from there went to college admissions. And then it just ballooned from there in terms of all the other ways I tried to create access, and then ultimately into entrepreneurship.
Wow, I love that. I mean, like you said, no journey is a straight arrow. We just kind of follow towards what's working in that moment and what we're excited about.
That's exactly right.
And talk about how you've been helping people find talent. You're kind of like this pipeline for people who need help in the philanthropic sector. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and it's turned out that I do that not just only in philanthropic. Now my company, we work across corporate, government, nonprofit, and the philanthropic sector. And, everybody has their superpowers, and it might take us a little while to identify them, or more importantly, it may take us a little while before we're able to name it as such. And it was others who actually helped me to see that this was my leadership superpower, which was connecting people, connecting ideas, but creating the space, seeding the ground that would allow people to be able to try something different, something new, but to find others and to be able to create the kind of experience that would lead them ultimately to work that they could be incredibly happy in and excited about. And that's happened in a couple of ways. And so, there are the things I was talking about, this pipeline we were creating for kids to be able to go on to bigger and better educational experiences. And again, I love that program. And I think this is important to note, particularly as this conversation here in the United States has become so politicized about diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, which is so very sad because it is so broad and meant to encompass any and everyone. The idea was it shouldn't be limited to only those who have money or those who are only one race, but it should be about how do we make something open for more women? How do we make sure that there are more people who have different experience, or more people who come from rural, or more people who maybe didn't get to go to college but still have great things to offer? So I see it as this much, much broader perspective, and it's the way we've come at the work, and it's not how we've limited our work, but we always are thinking about, wow, what would this table look like if we set it with a lot of different people, a lot of different interests, a lot of different perspectives, and a lot of different experience. And that's what I really has been a big part of my work, again, creating access and then connecting people to those opportunities. So whether it was this fellowship that I directed that ended over a decade ago, that I directed for almost a decade, which was designed to bring more people of color into the philanthropic sector. And this was not about because somehow they were less qualified. This was that in more cases than not, these folks were overqualified, but it was that there was just very few ways to get into the philanthropic sector. If you didn't already know someone or just wasn't part of your experience, it really was closed off. And this group of foundations and executives really committed themselves to, how do we solve for this? And so I was so happy to be a part of that work, which was open again to lots of different people. And we built out programming that began to service many of the philanthropic sector in New England, regardless, again, of race, gender, and otherwise. So that's a great example. Another is the work I do with clients. We are not an executive search firm, but many times because we've gotten to know our clients so deeply and so well, and have helped them to do their strategic planning process, or we've helped them to do their feasibility study for a capital campaign, or we've helped them think about what it means to be a high-performing management team or board of directors, they've come to us and said, even though you're not an executive search firm, you know us and you know how to do this work. Will you do searches for us? And so we've taken on many executive searches for many of our clients, even though, again, it is not, if you go to my website, it's not necessarily work that we say that we do as an executive search firm. But we've had great success at it, really thinking about what does that particular institution need, and then how to match the appropriate people. And then in another part of our work, it is building the infrastructure for teams to be successful. Again, whether it's corporate, government, nonprofit or philanthropic, what does it look like for a team to be successful? And that means from the most junior person, a Gen Zer, for example, who's just entered the workforce or just about to enter the workforce, all the way up to that seasoned leader, that person who's been there, but is now trying to take a leap of faith and do other things, wants to build new skills. What does it look like to be in support of all of them and build that team so it can be high performing and very successful? So that's some of how we have done the work. It's been incredible. But again, nothing I could have sat down 30 years ago and wrote out for you and that it would have been the exact thing that I ended up doing or the companies I've built to do.
Definitely. I mean, it just had to be step by step to turn into what it is today. And it sounds like it's been an amazing journey. And talk a little bit about some of the programs you recommend, because many artists, many creatives struggle with leadership or even outsourcing, building teams. Talk about some places that they can learn or learn how to become better leaders, even in their own creative businesses.
It's so, so true. It's interesting because I actually started my career out of college. I graduated from Oberlin College and went on to complete that educational policy degree at Harvard University many years later. But in between there, where I started my career was actually in the arts at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. And I never stopped telling people about how transformative that experience was for me. I was not an arts major in college. I wish I had known that the arts were truly open to everyone. Unfortunately, arts programming ended in my public school district for lack of funding when I was in fifth grade. I will never forget my art teacher, Miss Ross. How do you remember something like that, 40 years on? But it was because it was so important. And I remember what she was teaching us, and I couldn't wait to get to middle school to do more of it. And then sadly, I get to middle school that September, and we learned that most arts programs have been cut, with the rare exception they left music, which I loved, but I really wanted to do things with my hands. I really was looking forward to drawing and pottery and watercolor and charcoal, and just became fascinated with it, and didn't go to do any of that in college. Again, you're afraid because you now haven't had the exposure, and you think that's only for people who've been doing it for a very long time. I can remember in high school, at Camden High School in Camden, New Jersey, I would sneak into the art room and just ask the teacher questions. And I had a great friend in my class. His name's Mac, and he was a beautiful, amazing artist. His dream was to work for Disney, and he went on and did that. And I say all this to say that sometimes it may not be what you get to actually do, but it's still putting yourself in a place to have the conversations and be around it. And so little did I know, watching Mac, asking him questions and really admiring his work, encouraging him, asking that teacher in that class, even though I couldn't be in that class, because now they had made it only if you were super talented. Well, how do you know if you're going to be super talented if you never got a chance to get the investment in you? And so I just would ask the teacher questions and ask about what the tools were and the supplies and all of those things, and longingly would stop by that classroom. And then I get to college, and in my very last semester at Oberlin, I finally said, I'm going to just ask someone if I can do this. And I asked for an independent study, and essentially I made up an art history class for myself. And it just opened up a whole nother world for me. And then I get this first job at Brooklyn Academy of Music, not as a dancer, not as a singer, but actually on the side, which I realized I'm really good at, which is the management. So here I was asked to do community engagement. I was asked to help think about the fundraising. I was writing proposals. I was presenting those proposals in front of the board of directors. I was helping to actually bring the show in. So if it was Baryshnikov or it was Bill T. Jones or whatever it might be, I was exposed to all of these new things I had never seen before. And now I was getting this crash course. I was researching and getting books and asking lots of questions. But I found my place my niche was really around the management of and back to creating access, because now here I was able to help build programs, and then I was able to help tag on what we were going to do around the community engagement so that everyone in the community, regardless of their economic background, where they lived, that they would know that the Brooklyn Academy of Music, the oldest performing arts institution in the country, the doors were open to all of them, but we had to go out and make sure people knew that and understood that. So I got to dabble in PR and development, fundraising, community engagement, project management. it was fascinating, and it really set me off on this path to how I've done my work and really informed how I ultimately built my companies. There was also a place in there, though, where I got to teach management and leadership to creatives. So again, I couldn't have designed for this. I was I was serving as a senior fellow at Boston University School of Management. I was also teaching adult learners at Cambridge College. And then I got this opportunity, got this call to come over to what's now Lesley University. It was Lesley College in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which has lots of different programming and degrees it offers. But very specifically, I was asked to come and to teach management to creatives. And I thought, I didn't know that someone saw that or that I could do that. But it was actually what you just said, Crystal. It was teaching them, how do you think about your business? How do you write a proposal? How do you pitch your proposal or a potential partnership with other creatives or with institutions or organizations in the community? And all of these students were not necessarily going to go on to creative lives. But what I believed, just like it had been my opportunity, was that if you actually get people thinking creatively, it will serve them, whether they go on to have creative lives per se. But many of them did. And it was really exciting that I was helping to build out this program and this curriculum specifically around management for nonprofit management and for creatives. And it still is a highlight of my career, that teaching experience. And I've run into people since then who said, thank you. It made a difference. I've ended up doing so much more than I thought I could do, or I went out for jobs that I don't think I would have thought I could do if you hadn't opened the world up for us about how we could do this work and what it would look like to be leaders and managers in this work.
I love that. And what are some of the steps that a creative could take today to become a better leader or a better manager?
So there are programs, and there's so many more available, but there are things that you can do virtually, things, of course, that are in person. Some of it's very specific to creatives. Other things are broader, but still give you the skill set. I tell people that wherever you are in the world, there are some philanthropic institutions, and you should tag in to those philanthropic institutions because many of them will offer one-off kinds of learning opportunities. So you can sign up for a class. I was on the board of directors and president of the board of TS&E, which is a capacity building organization that works nationally with a variety of organizations. It's based in Boston. And what happened, COVID, is there were so many things that obviously were awful about COVID. But one of the things that I think everyone can say that it's been an outcome, a good outcome, is that there's so much more programming now online. And I named TSNE because they have really done a great job of creating programming, whether you're a creative, whether you're a nonprofit leader as a service provider, or whether you're just someone who's just interested. You can take a course. Their courses are offered typically between October and May. They're about 2 to 3 hours long. Some are in person, some are virtual, at a very nominal fee. And you can tag in and learn experiences around supervising, around writing proposals, around pitching proposals. So that's something, again, open to anyone, creative or otherwise. And then, of course, there are organizations that are doing just such a great job of offering additional programming. So Grant Makers for the Arts, for example, offers programming. Of course, the National Endowment for the Arts, the National Endowment for the Humanities. And again, I am hopeful, like many, that I know that, again, the politics here in the United States feel, there are many who feel like these programs are luxuries. They are time sucks. They're a waste of resources. And it is the furthest thing from the truth. This is what makes us a community. These are the things that give people another language, give people the way to think about how to be empathetic and how to be problem solvers and how to create solutions. The arts have always been core to our lives and our world in that way. So I would say, please look to any of those programs, go online and just simply Google, you can say, do research, online programs, virtual programs to learn leadership skills or for leadership skills for creatives. But those are some examples, and I'm excited that they're there.
Definitely. There's so many resources with the internet to learn anything. So definitely get involved in those online groups, online things that you can do. You don't always have to go in person. Maybe time is a luxury. So there's always ways to learn.
Hmm.
And you've been an entrepreneur for decades now. You've learned how to make money doing what you love. What advice do you have for creatives who are like, okay, how do I make money selling my art? Sometimes it feels so difficult, it feels impossible. What are some resources that have helped you learn how to earn income from your passion?
So I would say to people again, where time is a luxury as well as money, and I know that it certainly can be very difficult, but there are some programs. One that I would really encourage is if you have the ability to tap in, and again, much of this is virtual now, to their organizations like the Center for Women in Enterprise, and the name is a misnomer in some ways because the Center for Women in Enterprise is a subset of this Small Business Administration, the SBA, here in the United States, and there's certainly versions globally, but they actually open programming to anyone. But one of the first things I always encourage people, particularly creatives, is to really think about the business plan. Think about it is not just about your brilliance and your art, but how do you then begin to think about how do you put a structure around it? So, yes, ultimately you're trying to monetize it. You need resources. You need to make money so you can continue to do your art wherever you'd like to do that in the world. So, thinking about the structure, not a structure to suppress your creativity, not a structure to take away, but to give to you. And so, thinking about the business plan, and that can be at any level. And that's the other thing. I think sometimes people think, oh my gosh, I've got to be big time. I've got to be wanting to do lots of volume and I've got to want to be global before I can do anything. And that again is just not true. Really thinking about what is important to you at this moment. And it can change over time, and that's completely fine. I've shared my own personal story around my entrepreneurship. My companies were just turned 21 in January at the top of the new year. But for a long time, ran my company as a very small company while I was managing multiple health issues for family members, including my daughter. I couldn't be a consultant who could travel all over the country. I couldn't be a consultant who had a team of 25 and we had, 30, 40 projects a year. There was just no way. I had no capacity while I was caring for her for over a decade. So I had to think more strategically and build out a hybrid business. And that's okay if you have to do that. And what I mean by a hybrid business is that you might have a part-time job, which I know many creatives do, and that's the way in which you get your benefits, but make it so it's something that still gives you an opportunity to be in the space, learning, still figuring out where people are. You can stay in front of the curve. And that's what I did. And then I was able to build later as my daughter became well, and now she's a young adult and off and doing great things and an entrepreneur herself. But for a while, I had to just live with life where it was and build out something that was a little bit different, but would still give me an opening. So I would say, do that. Think about that business plan. So I built for a bigger business that I knew that I still was going to have to wait a decade. Took me over a decade before I got to manifest into a much bigger business. But I built the business plan out so when I'd be ready, but it also gave me an opportunity to still successfully complete those smaller intermediary steps that led me to where I wanted to go ultimately. So structure it with a business plan, and you can do that online. Again, places like the Center for Women in Enterprise allow for you to be able to do that as a course. Marie Forello has a great online course that people have taken and love. These things are possible. And you can do them in smaller spurts depending upon your resources, both time and financial. But I do believe the business plan is the key. And then lastly, I would say, Crystal, that one of the things that's really important is after you've done the business plan, really begin to set the goals for how you're going to do something in that business plan every day, every week, every month, because you don't want it to just become something that you sit on the shelf and I'll get to it later. It's the same advice I give to my clients when we do their strategic plans. It is not enough to have a strategic plan if you don't actually then build an operational plan with it. So I'm suggesting that for creatives, the business plan, and then how am I going to operationalize this? And it can be small steps. That's okay. But what am I doing daily, weekly, monthly to keep moving this ahead?
That's great advice. And are there any ways that you're using AI to run your business now that you think would work for a creative business as well?
Oh, there's so many ways, and some of which we've not even tapped into. But everything like, the conversation you and I are having here, you could put this obviously in AI and it could split this conversation up in 20 different ways and make it another thing that you could write about, or take a piece of our conversation and allow you to put some animation to it or put videos to it. There are all kinds of ways in which people are using AI. I know certainly colleagues who are using it to help build out their marketing. They're saying, here's who we want to reach. They produce some scripts that they're trying to create. And then they let AI help them to refine those scripts so they actually can have a campaign, a funnel of the kinds of emails they'll send or the kind of newsletters they'll write. There are just all kinds of ways. And I know that there are some that are very fearful. And I think with any technology, there's always the good and there's always the not great. And AI is no different. And so thinking about how you're using it in ways that are positive, how you're using it to build work that would be tougher for you, particularly if you have limited resources and can't build out a team. What are some of the things that AI could help you with, whether it's helping you with building out that marketing campaign, whether it's helping you to take something you've written and slice it up into 10 small pieces that then you can use it for posting in smaller chunks. All of those things are very, very doable, and watching people do them every day.
Definitely. There's so much opportunity and people are just starting to learn about these things. And what advice would you give someone who's stepping into a leadership role for the first time? Imagine a small creative business and they're like, okay, now I have people working for me. What advice do you have for them?
Be honest about what you're good at and be honest about what you're not so great at. And really sit down and have that talk with yourself. Write it out if you need to. Put it in a journal. Put it on a whiteboard. But really, none of us are good at everything. It's just not possible. So think about what you're excellent at and then build around it. So I'll give you a great example even on our team. I am really good at the business development. I love it. I love talking to people, creatively thinking about how we can meet their need, all of those things. But I can only do so much of it. And as you need more volume. So I am excited to have Edgar on our team who heads up new business development. He came with far more skill. I've taught myself along the way, but this is really what he's built his career over the last decade around. And so I love being in conversation. When we are in a meeting, in our leadership team meeting, it is as much about what Edgar has to offer and what he's proposing as what I'm proposing. There's no hierarchy here. I am glad to have his expertise. I am really excited about the conversations and the ways in which he's helping me to think about how we grow Tammy Dowley-Blackman Group. So I think even when it's something you're good at, we all just still need other people, resources. And there are other things that I'm not so great at. And so if it were up to me in the scheduling, that may sound to someone like something very small. It's huge. We are balancing that. We again work with corporate, government, nonprofit, and philanthropic. We are working across the country. We are working with projects that are at all different levels in terms of size and budget. We have projects that are starting while some are ending, some are in the middle, all of these things. And thank goodness for the folks who have served in that role over many, many years as the assistant and operations manager currently held by Carmina. This is something that she is really good at, trying to figure out all these pieces. It's a big puzzle piece, and how to keep everything moving and how to make sure everybody has what they need. Ariel, one of our project managers, Tiffany, one of our project managers, we can't do it if we don't have Carmina on top of it, making sure we're executing, that we have all the information, and that she is really that face to the external. So again, thinking about what you need, when you need it, and how you can build that. And some of this, I want to be very clear in saying, for many years, I did all of these things by myself, and that's okay. You start out and you're building and you're building and you're building, and then it might just be you add one thing or one person and it's just part-time, and that's okay. Just to build so that you can lessen some of what you don't do as much of as well, so that you can create more space for you to do more. And even at this point, still trying to figure out how I can build for opening up more space. I'm still too involved in so many ways. And so how do I create space for others so that they can take on leadership? And then the last piece I would say is that as you think about building a team, or as you think about stepping into that role of leadership, how are you going to communicate with people? One of the things we use, not only in our team internally, but I use it with clients, is we use the DISC profile. This little tool is so handy because it allows you to be able to see yourself, how you operate, and de facto what you turn to, particularly in moments of high stress. How do you tend to operate? And again, we show up as our best selves, and the times when we aren't able to show up as our best selves. And that's all good because we're human beings. But this tool allows you to be able to see, oh, when I'm working on all cylinders, this is what's happening. This is what I need. When I'm not, this is what potentially can happen. But it also gives you insight into your colleagues. What do they do well? What is harder for them? So that you all can help each other and thinking about what it looks like to, again, be a high performing team. That's so, so very important in defining that. What do we mean in our team? What does it mean to be high performing? And then the last thing I would offer is something that I had to get better at over time. There were so many things going on. I was rushing. I'm traveling. I've got this client meeting. We are writing this proposal. I had to start building in more time for us as a team to actually be together. And some people may say, well, doesn't that take away from you all actually being able to do work and actually putting out more proposals or all of those things? Sure, it might, but in the end, it makes us a stronger team. So now there are leadership team meetings on the schedule every week. There are check-in meetings that are just for Edgar and me, or they're for Carmina and me. We had to make time for those things, and I wasn't so good at that initially. And then it meant we would have to redo things, or we would get jammed up, or then we were responding to something at the last minute. Making that time for yourself and your team will only just give you more runway and make you better.
It's definitely great advice. It's all about outsourcing and like giving things to people that you're not so good at. And once you have those resources, it's great. You can only grow and focus on what you're good at. And I always like to ask my guests how they would define creativity in their own words. So what does it mean to you?
I love that. And I think about this a lot because for so long, I thought creativity was about that you had to be the artist, you had to be doing something as I had defined artistic. I'll never forget when I was 8 years old, I asked my mom, did everybody get a talent? And she said, of course, everyone has talents, and she goes on and she's trying to tell me about what talents are. And I so appreciated her in that moment because she could see that her 8-year-old was struggling. And what I was struggling around was that I didn't seem to have athletic talent. We didn't have the money for me to take music lessons or dance lessons or art lessons. So I felt like I didn't have anything. And I'll never forget her saying to me, do you know your talent is that you are so good with people, that you bring people out of themselves. She told me examples of how she had watched me with friends or my cousins. She said, do you realize the talent is that you're kind and you help other people be their best? And I know in that moment she was trying to make me feel good. And I have to say, it didn't take away still me wanting to be artistic. But over the years, I came to really understand that this idea of talent and creativity is so much bigger and so much broader than it may be showing up as artistic talent. Again, the person I'm working here today with, who's an amazing videographer, and Leon is talented in this way. There are others who are talented. I've got a nephew who's a talented photographer. I've got a cousin who's talented in that he designs clothes and is a in college working on a business degree at Wayne State. I look at all the ways my goddaughter is creative and that she is so empathetic, and she realized that her talent was to go on to become a social worker. And so she's doing her MSW at the University of Pennsylvania. I look at my own daughter and the level of creativity that she does. She's identified that the talent is hidden for so many people who have learning differences and people treating them differently, and how to figure out how they can be proud of who they are, okay with who they are, and that we've got 339 million people in the world who have learning differences that have been diagnosed. And that's what she's tapping into in her business and creatively doing that. So I would just remind people that this is a broad idea of how you should look at creativity, and we all have talent. And I realized that, yes, my talent was not drawing or painting, or at least I've not found it yet, but my talent is that I can see something and I can problem solve for that in a way managerially, in a way that builds leaders, in the ways that bring people together and help organizations, companies, government agencies, philanthropic institutions be able to do their best work. So creativity is broad. See it as broad. We need every kind of creative. Please don't limit yourselves, and be really proud of whatever that talent is that you bring, because it's amazing and it's unique to you. So I had to learn that over time. That's how I would describe creativity.
Well, I think that is a beautiful note to end on. And where can people connect with you and learn more about your work?
Sure. The website is www.tammy, Tammy, D as in David, B as in boy, group.com. So I'd love it if they were in touch. Also, they can email us at info@tdbgroup.com. And I'm actually going to do that website one more time because I was thinking about the email, but it's just simply tammydb.com. And you can find us. And it's Tammy Dowley-Blackman Group. And we're based in Baltimore, Maryland. We work across the country, are excited to be trying to create projects where we can work internationally. And we work across corporate, government, nonprofit, and philanthropic. And the core of our work is organizational and leadership development.
Lovely. Well, we will share all of that in the show notes. And thank you so much, Tammy.
Well, it has been a pleasure, Crystal, and thank you for all the ways that you are showing people what it means to be a leader and a creative. And thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in to La Vie Creative. You can find more information on MissParisPhoto.com. And if you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word for all my creative guests. We have the power to help them to keep doing what they love. See you next time.